From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 590. Today's show is brought to you by Gusto, Squarespace, and Delete Me. My name is Mike Hurley, and I am joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. I have returned to my normal place in the world, which is California. Sorry if the studio seems a little lonely.
It does, actually. I really enjoyed having you here, but I especially enjoyed recording in person last week.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a really good time. It was a really good time.
It's great that we had an Ask Upgrade question about that because it got us to kind of like deconstruct it, and it's a lot of fun. It is. I feel like it's almost like a little out of body experience. I was there, and I know I'm on camera, which I am every time, but it's like I'm on camera and everything's positioned in a certain way, and I'm looking kind of over a microphone at your iPad, which it was like. I felt a little discombobulated, but I think the episode was pretty good. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Well, secret is I saved that Ask Upgrade question until I knew you were going to be with me, and then we asked that.
We are not amateurs here. We've been doing this for 590 episodes. We're
professionals.
We have ways, yeah.
I have a Snell Talk question for you that comes from John, who wants to know, Jason, you often mention that you do not keep your iPhone in the bedroom, so what do you use as an alarm clock?
Now, first, I want to say I work out of my garage. So what makes you think I even need an alarm clock?
How would you know when to get up?
Okay, well, a few things. First off, the dog. Second, the cats. Okay. And third, my wife does work in a place that's outside and has an alarm that goes off. Okay. That said, I do actually use my Apple Watch when I need an alarm. So
okay.
The Apple Watch goes by the bed in nightstand mode, so I can do that thing, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest things that the Apple Watch can do, which is it lights up in the middle of the night if there's any vibration. So if you bump, I literally bump my nightstand. I just kind of like with an elbow or a hand or whatever. I literally just give it a little. It's not even a hard bump. It's just I kind of like push it. Briefly.
It's like you wouldn't believe all the alarms we got in this bad boy, and
it pops right up and says the time, and then it also says when the alarm time is, and that's what I use. I use the Apple Watch nightstand mode as my alarm when I need one, including when I'm traveling. When I was in London, my Apple Watch was what I would set at night so that I would not, because with the jet lag, your fear is that 1, you might wake up at 4 a.m. and 2, you might wake up at noon. So I would set that alarm for 7:30 or 7 or whatever, and get up then. So that Apple Watch is the answer. I really like how they've implemented it. You don't sleep track
with your Apple Watch? You just leave it next to you?
I tried it for a while, and then and I tried it a little bit when they put the sleep score out, but generally no. If I did, then the answer would be the same. The answer would be I
might be more effective.
I have an alarm on my Apple Watch, and that works great too. That's silent. That just taps you when it's time to get up. I should really try to convince Lauren to wear her Apple Watch to bed and use that as her alarm, because her alarm goes off at 6:30 in the morning, and I don't need to hear it because I don't want to get up then. But that's when her alarm goes off, and it would be nice if it was silent, but alas, it is not. So, but yeah, if I sleep tracked, I would just also use my Apple Watch. Apple Watch is the answer for sure.
I set like 6 alarms in the morning.
You're one of those people, huh?
Yeah, but I'm not as bad as Victor in the Discord, who says they have 2 old-school digital alarm clocks, a Nintendo Alarmo and my iPhone alarm to wake me up. So Victor needs a lot of assistance in the morning, is what we've learned today.
Yeah. I mean, they design products for people like that, where it's like the thing you've got to throw across the room, which snoozes it, but then it's across the room and it goes back on, and you have to get up because it's not going to stop. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's fine. No, I don't even want to snooze on mine. I'm not a snoozer either. Once I'm awake, I'm awake. Once I commit to being awake, that's it. It's ruined. Everything is over. It's the same reason I'm not a napper. Once it's over, it's over.
If you would like to send in a question to help us open a future episode of the show, just go to upgradefeedback.com and you can send in your own Snell Talk question. It's time for some follow-up. I'll just mention here, this is your last warning to buy Upgrade merch for the holidays this year by going to upgradeyourwardrobe.com. The campaign ends on the 19th.
Yeah,
I think it
hoodies.
is. Hoodies,
and
tees.
colors are shirt very popular. Really nice
Yes.
colors this time. So yeah, check out the hoodies and the colors are, and there's some other stuff there too. Somehow AirPods Max Believe is going to go to print, which is amazing. Mike, did you get an AirPods Max Believe? The shirt I made for you?
I don't think I did.
Okay,
I don't
fair.
remember. I have made an order. I would need to search my email.
I have also
I
made
would
an order.
I would be surprised if I ordered it.
I ordered 2 color czars this time, and I ordered an Upgrade Pro, which I have not done before because I like colorful T-shirts. But I did because they got the long body. They got that long body tee.
We love that. We love
I
that
love
long body.
I love that long body tee. I have one that's it's for ALS research. Baseball is the best T-shirt from Pitching Ninja. People can look it up. I've got that in orange and blue, and it's gorgeous. But according to the people at Cotton Bureau, that T-shirt is basically only available in monochrome colors. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll put it in the Upgrade Pro then. So I'm getting I think dark gray Upgrade Pro T-shirt in long body, so my body can
long
be
bodies.
Love it.
No, I bought 2 Colors Are t-shirts, a Colors Are sweatshirt, and the quarter zip.
Oh, Colors Are sweatshirt, the pullover. Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Anyway, upgradeyourwardrobe.com. Thank you, everybody. And it ends in a couple of days as we record this, Wednesday the 19th. So if you have dawdle no longer.
Many people wrote in, Jason, to say that the $30 discount that we spoke about last week when you buy an iPhone in the US obviously doesn't apply if you're a customer of an MVNO network, so
Right,
one of the smaller networks.
It's like a virtual carrier that's using an existing network. So this is how they get you. This is how they get you. They're like, oh, it's all cheap down here on Mint Mobile or whatever, but then your iPhone costs $30 more. So that sucks. Sorry about that.
Someone also wrote in to say that AT&T sometimes or always charge a $35 activation fee, so getting it back.
I have not experienced that, but I'm on an unlimited plan. See, this is the thing: is that what is a price really? Like, obviously, depending on what plan you're on. Like T-Mobile, there's an ad for T-Mobile right now that's like, if you bring in your old phone or you switch to T-Mobile, I forget what the deal is, but like on some circumstances with some plans, they will give you an iPhone for free and an Apple Watch and an iPad, right?
Oh, come on.
It is bizarre. So yeah, there's an ad with Kevin Hart that's all about that. So I guess what I'm saying is the carriers know that this is their way to merchandise and get people on plans and get people to commit to certain plans at certain levels. So what is pricing? I think $7.99 is what Apple quotes, and that it is the mainstream price for people on the 3 major carriers in the U.S. But it's absolutely true that a bunch of people don't pay that. It's not as onerous as it was. Look, this is a vestige of the under contract price, right? Which used to be a real thing, which is you can buy it unlocked or you can buy it under contract. And it's not quite like that now. I can just buy a phone and say it's AT&T, and I don't need to agree to be on AT&T for a certain number of years, and I can unlock that phone whenever I want, and it's just not a big deal. But this is a vestige of that if you're not part of the preferred set of carriers in the U.S., you pay more, and that's too bad. I agree completely. That's dumb.
Apple has announced that Major League Soccer is going to be available for all Apple TV subscribers at no extra cost.
Yeah, this is a big story because this was I think $99, $129. It was basically a separate subscription you could get that wasn't Apple TV, or if you had Apple TV, you could get it for a discounted price, but you had to pay more to get all the games. And it was very complicated, and they put some on Apple TV, and they put some that were free. It was a mess. And I feel like the moment that they announced that F1 would just be on Apple TV was the moment where I thought, they got to do that with MLS, right? And this is actually part of a larger thing where they renegotiated their contract with MLS. So Apple used to have an out. Yeah. So a couple things going on. There was some Apple leverage here because MLS wanted to change its season. MLS is going to align with European and I guess international soccer league seasons. So they currently play over the summer and end in the fall. And they're going to change so that they start in the summer and end in the spring, like everybody else. So that I think requires a change, especially since they're going to have to play like a mini season in order to align. In 2027, they're going to play like a spring season, and then they're going to start their 27-28 season, I think it is, that summer. So they had to do something with Apple here. What Apple did, Apple moved it to this tier. I assume that there is not much of a rev share going on there. I think Apple's just paying for the service. I don't think like for every MLS League Pass that was sold, a few dollars went to MLS, but maybe that's true. I don't know. But so they renegotiated this to get it down on the standard Apple TV tier. There's just one thing. I think that's great for simplicity. The other thing is that Apple had an opt-out in 2 years, I think, where Apple could just walk away from the deal. And then the deal continued for another like 5 years beyond that, or 4 years beyond that. Now the deal is shorter, but the opt-out is gone. So I've seen some people say this is Apple not being happy with MLS and wanting to walk away. I actually don't think that's true. I think that this is Apple and MLS committing to be partners, because the opt-out is gone, right? So now Apple is going to stay longer than they optionally could have.
Yes.
And it means that MLS, at a time when sports rights are going way up, MLS will be able to renegotiate and find either renegotiate with Apple or find a new partner and put their rights up for grabs sooner. A few years, like 2 or 3 years sooner. So it's just the deal has changed. But for viewers, the great thing about this is, and I think this is so smart for so many reasons, like if you're even MLS curious and you're an Apple TV subscriber, you can try it out. And hitting a second paywall is a bad idea, just as it would be for F1. So I think this is super smart that they're doing this. You have a note in our show doc, which is this probably means they're going to raise the price of Apple TV. Again, I would say, I don't know. I feel like they're going to, I'm not sure that sports rights are a motivator here that much. But I mean, I think they're going to raise prices anyway, because everybody's raising prices. I think that would have been the case regardless.
Yes, but I think they'll put the price up and we'll say,
you get F1, you get MLS.
Year, look how much we give you now.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the argument.
Put it up.
That's the argument is that what they're doing is they're pouring all of this stuff in there. And I've heard from people who are like, oh no, they're going to ruin Apple TV like they ruined cable because the sports rights fees are going to make everything cost more. And it's like, well, yeah, but what they're trying to do here is make it appealing for more people. So you're going to get people who get Apple TV initially just for MLS or just for F1, and then will watch Severance or whatever and get into it that way. And that's good, because those people are coming in for sports and are staying. You're coming in for not sports and are staying, and they're trying to build this thing that is a little more broad, because it's not a very popular service right now. I saw my first Peacock Apple TV bundle ad yesterday.
I've seen one too,
a football
somewhere.
game. And it's wild, because it's like Severance, Ted Lasso, and then it's like The Office and Traitors. And it's like two great tastes that are not that similar, but they taste great together. Buy the bundle. Interesting thing. So but again, Apple says that they're very happy with Apple TV, and I think that they are in terms of the content especially, but I think their real challenge is just getting more people to try it and keep it as a subscription. So I think this MLS deal is just another, it's not going to be a game changer, but it's another indication of their strategy that the F1 deal was also an indication of.
Yeah, for whatever reason they set the terms with F1 the way that they did, right? That it would be available to everyone, right? It wasn't going to be an extra cost. For whatever reason, it ended up being that, whether F1 pushed it or Apple pushed it or whatever. I think that then it just made it so clear that they needed to do this MLS, as you mentioned, and I'm sure that's why it seems like Apple have maybe given a little more in the renegotiation, because I'm sure that Apple were more convinced about wanting to offer this to everyone, with MLS getting a different deal. I don't know. They call out in the press release that 2026 is going to be the World Cup, which is in North America.
Yes.
So it actually does feel like the perfect time to offer MLS for free.
Yeah, with the Apple TV subscription,
quote unquote free.
But I agree that there's hope in the U.S. and in North America that the World Cup will help. I don't know if the World Cup is going to help soccer in North America this time around, just because I feel like soccer in North America is doing pretty good now. But maybe this will give it a little bit of extra attention, a little boost, and that's true. But I think I think soccer has come a long way in North America. And the interest in it may be more globally than MLS, but we'll see. We'll see how it is.
I think the problem with US interest in the World Cup is your team, right?
Where, yes, and our men's team is garbage.
Where the women's team has been very successful,
great.
And I think has really increased people's desire to want to watch women's football in America.
What I would say though is I think that American soccer fandom is more international, right? I think that American soccer fandom, it's got a few different groups. There are people who are fans of MLS, but there are a lot of people who are fans of European leagues.
Yeah,
and there's also a huge slice of people who are fans of Liga MX, the Mexican league, and so I think that that's going to be interesting because I think World Cup in the U.S. Men's World Cup, it's just a different experience. But you're right, you don't get the USA part. Which if the U.S.
you're not going to get the casual people who don't care about football. They might watch it because the American team's in the final, but they're not. That's not going to happen.
Which actually did happen for the women's team, right? The women's team, because Americans. I'll say this: even if Americans don't understand soccer, they understand winning teams being the best in the world, and they love that. So the women's team did that. It's funny, when I was in London, went to the Arsenal Chelsea women's match at Emirates Stadium with my friend Simon, who lives right next to Emirates Stadium, the Arsenal Stadium, and is a Chelsea fan. It was very funny. He got to actually go. We had a great time. 50,000 people, which is more people than have ever seen a women's professional soccer match in the U.S., not the World Cup, but professional soccer. It was a lot of fun. But again, it's a great environment. But I was reminded the Chelsea manager used to be the current U.S. women's manager was the Chelsea women's manager, and Simon asked me how people felt about her, and I said, well, as much as people in the U.S. think about soccer at all, I think everybody thinks it's logical that the U.S. women's team would get the best women's soccer manager in the world, because people really, and the U.S. women haven't gotten worse, but they have had a lot of people retire, and they have a new generation. And the truth is that the rest of the world cares about women's soccer now in a way they didn't. But you're right. The dynamic is just very different there than it is, because the U.S. men's team is not going to be. I mean, it'll be a miracle if they get out of their group. So we'll see what it is. But I think, unlike why it's a canny investment, F1 and MLS are canny investments for Apple, because they get to own the whole thing. And they are both perceived as being sports with growth potential in a way that a lot of sports maybe aren't, with kind of large growth potential, and that they're interested in it for that reason. So we'll see. I wanted to, when I was at Heathrow, waiting to come home, which means that I've got a post on Six Colors that is timestamped 1:52 a.m., which makes I'm delighted by that. I just wanted to throw this out there related. A lot of people linking to this interview Eddie Q did with Screen International, which is like a French magazine, I think. I don't know. And they asked about Apple TV doing an ad tier. And he said, nothing at this time. I don't want to say no forever, but there are no plans. And everybody's like, see, they're not going to do it. And I point at the same thing and I say, see, this is what you say when you're going to do it, but you're not ready to announce it yet. I think no plans means we haven't made the plans yet. Nothing at this time means nothing at this time. It does not mean nothing at all future times. I don't want to say no forever is a thing you say when you will probably say yes sometime, right? Like, it is that people are not parsing this right. And look, I take no glee in this. I pay for ad-free tiers on all of my platforms. I don't want to see the ads. But I wrote back 2 years ago about this. I do think they're inevitable in the long term for a few reasons. Every other streaming service has them, and they've all been successful and have generated lots of revenue. Once you offer an ad-free tier and you calculate the average revenue per user, everybody realizes that they make way more money on the ad tier than they do on the ad-free tier, and then they raise the price of the ad-free tier in order to get it to match. Apple keeps raising the price of Apple TV, which gives them more room underneath to place an ad tier. They love services revenue and want to increase it. They are not very well viewed, and offering a low-priced ad tier would be a way to get new people to watch Apple TV. And my favorite, Apple has as we've discussed here, dedicated ad sales VP whose job it is to generate ad revenue everywhere Apple touches. So I have no doubt that these ads would be tasteful and limited and high quality, et cetera, yada yada yada. But I'm just gonna say it. I can't conceive of a scenario where Apple goes years and years and years as literally the only streaming service to not offer an ad tier, especially since they have like an ad business. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's good, because if somebody wants to watch, especially the sports, because the sports will have ads in it, right? The sports will have ads in it. The MLB already has ads in it, and like they'll have some ads in it. So whether you've got the ad tier or not, you'll still see some ads. It gets people in the ecosystem. It gets people watching F1 for maybe cheaper, but they'll make that money back. Like there's lots of ways to cut this. So I think it's much more likely than not that they will do this. I'm not saying when. I mean, I don't want to say no forever, nothing at this time. We think it's better for consumers not to get interrupted with ads. By the way, let me parse that. Not to get interrupted with ads doesn't mean no ads. It means pre-rolls. Yeah. It means post rolls. It means in between I'm just saying, this is not evidence of anything, and in fact, it might even be evidence that they will do it at some point.
It is funny that the sport, like usually you'd say like, oh, sports are perfect for ads, but the two sports that Apple have are really bad.
Are the worst for ads.
So bad for ads.
Yeah, although I mean the broadcasters who do it, they slide up ads. They put ads in the score box. They push it back and make a wrap around it while it's going on. They find ways to do it.
They find ways to do it. Ones.
And with all the pregame and the postgame and all of that, they put ads. They stuff ads in there. Halftime for soccer, they stuff the ads in there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But by the way, no spoilers or anything. But have you seen Pluribus yet?
Not yet. No. I know it's really at the moment right now. It's like particularly difficult for us to be able to sit down and like watch a show for an hour like uninterrupted, and so hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to start watching it.
I see. Blame the baby. Blame the baby.
I never said anything about a baby. You said something about the baby. I just said we can't watch things right now. I didn't give a reason.
All right. I'm gonna blame the baby then.
You can.
Anyway, it's good. That's what I'll say.
Yep.
That's my review of Pluribus. It's good.
I can't wait. A federal jury in California has awarded a victory to Masimo in their fight with Apple over the patent for blood oxygen readings on the Apple Watch. This jury concluded that Apple infringed on Masimo's patent and has awarded them $634 million in damages. Now, when you read that, you're like, oh, it's settled. This has got nothing to do with Apple, Massimo, and the International Trade Commission. Like, there are multiple separate lawsuits that are occurring. This is just kind of like Massimo going for damages. So they beat Apple here, but it doesn't have any real standing over whether the Apple Watch can have a blood oxygen sensor in it or not, because the patent that was in this case expired in 2022, but they've been able to claim damages for the time period of 2015 to 2022, and they won this lawsuit. So things continue, but if you've been seeing this headline and you're like, aha, it's over. No, it's not. It's the thing you care about, which is blood oxygen sensor coming back to your Apple Watch. Nothing to do with this at all. But fight continues.
Yeah, I mean, they don't like it. Here's some sports. Getting back to the sports. Oh, these two don't like each other. I mean, yeah, 600. I'll just point out 634 million or whatever is a lot of money to you and me, and not to Apple. So, okay.
Yeah, it's still a lot of money though. I mean, I know it's not a lot of money to them, but it is a lot of money.
It is. It is. It is very funny. I mean, maybe this is why they don't settle the dispute, is that Massimo thinks that they can rack up $1 billion, $2 billion in claims.
Yep.
And Apple doesn't want to pay them $2 billion, so they're like, all right, we'll just keep suing you then.
And here we are. Jason, it is that time of year
Jingle,
it's the
jingle.
time. Jingle, jingle.
It's the
giving
most
time.
wonderful time of the year.
So this
Membership.
is when we have a sale on our membership. So
Yes.
go to giverelay.com to learn more, or you can just very easily go to getupgradeplus.com and use the code 2025 holidays at checkout, and you will get 20% off your first year of an annual plan. So you will get a year of Upgrade Plus for $56. That will give you longer ad-free episodes of the show every week. So for about $1 an episode, there'll be no advertising. You won't hear us talk about Upgrade Plus anymore, like the fact that you should sign up for it. You just get the content.
Yeah.
You also support this show. Like, if you're hearing me say this right now, and we are an important part of your week, you listen to us every Monday or every Tuesday, you enjoy the show. Do you think this episode is worth $1 to you? If you think it is, become a member. Your membership support continues to be more and more important to the way the show is able to be produced.
It's true.
We are very lucky to have advertisers on the show, but we don't always, and it's not something that we can always rely on. Things go up and down throughout the year, but what doesn't change is membership support, because people who become members, and our membership partner, member for, they tell us, like Relay FM or Relay FM, Relay and
switch
Relay
on.
FM before, switch on, that we are among their lowest churn that they see across all of their partners, which means once people become members of Relay, they stay members of Relay. And we're very appreciative of that. So we are asking for you to consider it as well. If you really enjoy this show and you want to support what we're doing, please sign up. It takes a lot of work to make a show as good as I think this one is. Like, we believe we do a good show here. It takes a lot of work. And it's only, I think, taking more work with time. Like, we put a lot into this show.
Yeah.
So if you agree with us that this is a show that you enjoy, I would expect that you'd be happy to pay the equivalent of $1 an episode. So, also, if you're the kind of person that has people asking them around the holidays, what would you like me to buy you? And you have no good answers, this is a good answer. You just say, go to giverelay.com and get a membership for Upgrade Plus. They could gift it right to you. It's very easy to do that. Memberful built a great flow for us to be able to do that. So go to giverelay.com to learn more, or go to getupgradeplus.com, use the code 2025 holidays at checkout, and that will just get you right sorted and you'll be all taken care of. On Upgrade Plus today, we're going to talk about my iPhone Pocket. I have an orange iPhone Pocket, and we're going to talk about it there.
Imagine. Wow. I can't wait to hear about it.
I reckon you've got some stuff to say about the iPhone Pocket.
We'll find out in Upgrade Plus whether I do or not.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Gusto. You started your business to do what you're good at, not to spend hours calculating tax withholdings. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on why you started your business in the first place. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's an all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. You get unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price. No hidden fees, no surprises. Save time with automated tools built right in, offer letters, onboarding materials, direct deposit, and more. It's quick and simple to switch to Gusto. Just transfer your existing data to get set up and running fast. Plus, you don't pay a cent until you run your first payroll. When Gusto became a sponsor, Stephen was very excited, so he uses Gusto for small businesses, the small businesses that he's a part of, and thinks it's fantastic. Has been using it for a while and really loves it, and he was telling me just how much he values this software. So look, saving time when you're a small business owner is very important. As well as saving time, you like to save frustration, so anything that can make your job run that little bit easier, your daily tasks run that little bit easier, that is a win in my book. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/upgrade and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/upgrade. One more time, gusto.com/upgrade. Our thanks to Gusto for their support of this show and all of Relay. Rumor Roundup time.
Yeehaw!
The Financial Times is reporting that discussions at Apple regarding Tim Cook's succession are accelerating, with the thought that he may be stepping down, quote, as soon as next year. They say it's unlikely that a new CEO will be named before the next earnings report in late January, which is very soon. Like,
I mean,
oh, it won't be that quick. It's like, whoa, hang on, I wasn't expecting it in January at all.
yeah.
You brought that up, not me. But the expectation from this report is in the report as well. Like, the expectation is this role will be filled by hardware chief John Turnus. This is something that would expected to be done earlier than not in the year to lay the groundwork for Turnus taking on more responsibility over the course of 2026. He would probably co-lead WWDC, the iPhone event. Like, he would start to, everyone would know it was going to be him, so he would start to do all of the stuff that a CEO would do, and him and Tim would probably have a bit of a double act going on as the year continues. John Gruber posits that this may be an intentional leak by Apple to start the ball rolling and like get the word out there, because he expects that people who would know about this would not speak off the record about it, especially as the Financial Times lists talking to, quote, several people familiar with the matter. That made a lot of sense to me, right? Like, if you've got a lot of sources on this, who are these people that would know this? That this is the board.
The byline is for people at the FT too. This is a, yeah. I think John is right. This feels like, first off, I want to step back and say I think it's stunning, because I really did think Tim Cook was going to hang around as CEO for maybe 5 years. But I have a couple thoughts about that. I do think this is probably official, and this is the beginning. This is the testing the waters, seeing how the stock reacts. Nobody likes to be surprised, so you put this out there, and it's like setting the narrative that sometime in 26 we will hear about it. But don't worry, there's a plan. It's all going to be fine. You're going to hear more about it. And in some ways, I feel like Mark Gurman has served that purpose by mentioning for a couple of years John Turnus's name, and that they were doing some succession planning. And then this FT story comes out and says that this is going to happen, not at the end of January, or not until maybe the end of January, or maybe even later. And so it's like, it's stunning, but I think, because I really did think it was going to last longer, but I understand why if they're going to do this, they have chosen to do this in this way, where they're leaking out the details. Nobody wants to be surprised. Everybody needs to be able to process it. And then I would imagine, look, Tim Cook had to be interim CEO a bunch. And then as Steve Jobs was very ill and not too far away from dying, Steve Jobs transferred to the CEO job to Tim Cook, and then became the chairman very briefly.
Yep.
I would imagine that, seasoned as he is now, Tim Cook has some opinions about how that went and how ideally it would be done. And then I'm sure he's also talked to the board. This is one of those cases where the board has to be deeply involved, because it's the board that chooses who the CEO is going to be. And so I think that this is that plan that Mark Gurman's been writing about for a couple of years, and it feels like they have pushed the button to begin the execution of the plan. I expect, as I think a lot of people expect, that Tim Cook will probably be named executive chairman of the board or something like that.
We have spoken about that for a while, me and you, right? Of like, if you're going to do this, do you really just want like a man as powerful and connected to world leaders as Tim Cook to just go home? Like, all of a sudden one day you just let him go? No.
He turns the lights off, and
like, there has to be many situations where Turnus and Cook are going around the world together, meeting with the premiers of different countries. Like, you don't just be like, oh, I'm out. I'll see you, everybody. I'm out of here.
And honestly, when Donald Trump says, I want to talk to Tim Apple needs to get on the phone, right? Like, Tim Apple needs to get on the phone.
So who's this John Apple?
Yeah. He's like, no, don't worry about John. You just call me. I'll talk to the people. I'm the guy. I'm the chairman. You get me. I'm in charge still. And that they can split the. Actually, this is a great way to do a transition, right? Is you split the job, and John Turnus wouldn't, if he's the CEO, wouldn't have to do 100% of the job, because Tim Cook is still there doing more like super high level diplomatic functions. And I wonder if that, I mean, it would not surprise me if that is a big part of the conversation here, is how to, the whole point is to do a transition that is not shocking. And so to have him step into this role, like how Tim Cook was COO, right? Like he steps into this role, Tim Cook is chairman and is still present and is still doing stuff. And then that allows Tim Cook to sort of like gradually kind of fade away into the background. And that's the way you want to do a transition like this.
Yep.
I still am shocked, though. I have to say, I thought Tim would not do this for a while, but there are a few things here. One is, if everybody knows you're going to do it, succession planning gets weird. Like, I think about Disney before Iger left and Disney now with Iger leaving again. You end up in a situation where you end up with a lot of lieutenants who think they're owed it, but aren't going to get it. And then you're going to lose talent because those people are going to quit and go somewhere else. So there's an argument that if you're going to do a longer transition and you're going to keep Tim around on the board, that once everybody knows that's happening, maybe it needs to happen, right?
And if you feel like you've found the guy, right?
Yeah.
Like you feel like if they're confident, if he's confident, it's like, I want it to be John. Do not let someone come to him and offer him $100 billion. You know what I mean? Like, don't get yourself into a situation where now you've lost the person. Like that is the worst thing. This is exactly what happened at Disney, right?
Yeah.
Was it Kevin Sachs? Was that his name?
I forget. There were definitely people. There were people who thought they were going to be the CEO, and then the CEO just didn't retire, and they left to do something else. And then when the CEO was going to retire, they thought that they were going to be in the running for CEO. Somebody else got the job, and they left. And then the CEO didn't work out either. So it was like bad. So there's an argument to be made.
Kevin Mayer. That's it.
That once you know it's going to happen, it needs to happen, right? I think I could get behind that argument that like you can't say we've got it all planned. It's a little like this is going to be a bizarre reference, but like they signed at some point, like with 5 years to go or something, they signed a deal with Conan O'Brien at NBC where he would take over the Tonight Show and Jay Leno would retire. And then it gets 5 years later and they're like, but Jay Leno's ratings are still good. What are we going to do? And it was a disaster and things. And they ended up giving the Tonight Show to Conan O'Brien, and a year later taking it away from him and settling and paying him off and having him leave, and they put Jay Leno back in charge. Very Bob Iger-like in some ways, but it's this idea.
Yep. The
point there is they did a multi-year succession plan, which is it's just a bad idea. Like the last thing you could do is say you're going to be in this job but not for 5 years, and you're going to be in this job for 5 years and then you're going to leave. Like if you're going to do it, plan a transition and then start it. And it feels to me like they've decided 26 is that year. Yeah. That they're going to start it.
Multi-year transition, and then you start it with an overlap, and then the outgoing person is still around, but slowly letting go of things over time. But like, who knows, right? Maybe Tim stays on the board for like a decade or something, right?
Sure.
And just continues to be the... maybe turns like, I don't want to do all the political stuff. It's like, you know what? No problem. I like doing this. That I don't want to completely let go, but I don't want to be deciding what Max we're doing anymore.
So a lesson from the jobs transition to Cook. A lesson from that is every CEO, and we've talked about this, every CEO brings what they are good at and who they are.
Yep.
And the job is defined by the person. I would argue that the job of the executive chairman, who was the CEO for 15 years and has been in the company for 20 years, is also defined by the person. So a rigid view here would be, well, I mean, he's got to do everything that Tim Cook does because he's going to be the CEO like Tim Cook. It's like, that's not how it has to be. This may be strategically, look, we should say it may be that Tim Cook has so much money and he's done. And he's like, I'll give you a year and then I'm out and I'm just going to go sail around in the Mediterranean or whatever. Like, okay, fine. I don't actually believe that. He seems like a very type A personality who cares about Apple and can't conceive of not working. But what you could say is, I'm going to step into chairman job. That's going to let me do some of this politics stuff. John's already the SVP of hardware. that's going to be the thing that he's best at. He will coordinate strategy with the board, with me, and with everybody who works for him. And he will grow into this job of CEO and define it as it works for him.
Yeah.
You know, Tim Cook had lieutenants around him. Tim Cook had Jeff Williams, for example, right? Like, and then ultimately John Turnus to rely on for stuff that, and he had Johnny Ive at the beginning, to rely on for these things of, like that were not in his area of expertise. He could be a decision maker, but he had the lieutenants who knew the details that he didn't have to. Every CEO defines that differently. So I could see this being a really smart way of approaching it that keeps Tim Cook engaged at the level that Tim Cook needs to be engaged at. In fact, you could argue that this is something that would not necessarily be, and maybe shouldn't be, a dramatic change where one day one guy's in charge and the next day another guy's in charge. But instead it's more like a continuum, a transition where Turnus gets a new title, but Tim is still doing stuff. And then over time, Turnus is building up like his set of people, which are all coming from inside Apple because that's how they do it. It just has to be good. Somebody, I think Gurman pointed out, John Turnus has been at Apple like half his life. I mean, he's a lifer. He's been there like 24 years.
Yeah, so he's 50.
Yeah. So it is in his blood. That is the type of person you put in charge of Apple. And if he's the superstar, you do that. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll see what they say. I definitely, I'm surprised it happened so quick, but I think that maybe suggests something, which is that this is not going to be so quick, actually. And that the point of doing it now is that if they wait five years, that transition time is going to be less, right? Because I think at some point Tim Cook is going to be out. And if Tim is 65, maybe he says, okay, if we want to do a 5-year transition, let's do it now, right?
Yep.
Because at 70, I'm going to walk away or whatever it is, or be less engaged. So why don't we start the disengagement now? But I still am going to give you 5 or 10 years on the board, and that's how we're going to do it. Now would be a way to do that. So I'm stunned a little bit by it, but I agree with all of the people who read this as to a high-level financial organization. So it's Wall Street Journal or Financial Times. So in this case, it's the FT, to have this story with several people saying that this is going to happen. Apple wants it to be known that this is going to happen, and they don't want everybody to be freaked out when it happens. And this is how so we get 2 years of Mark Gurman saying it, then we get the FT saying it, and it allows all of Wall Street to process it, calm down, and then be ready. And when they announce it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I already knew that was going to happen. It's fine. It's fine."
Yep. Just because from a simple perspective, like on Rumor Roundup, where we're talking about similar publications a lot. Yeah. We never talk about the Financial Times.
The FT is very rare. It does happen, but it's really rare.
But like of having like, oh, they got the hot scoop. No, they are like the perfect place to talk to the people who are most likely to be upset about this happening.
Right. And to talk to the board in order to convey this message to the movers and shakers on the board of directors at Apple. I think that is what's going on here. Yeah, for sure.
Moving on, Mark Gurman is reporting that Tesla is now looking to add CarPlay to its cars as a way to try and defend against the decline in sales and interest for the brand.
Yeah, this is
hilarious is what it is. It's very funny.
So in the context of GM saying forget about it, and of Rivian never supporting it, and Tesla has never supported it, and Mark Gurman's report points out that there was a lot of bad blood between Apple and Tesla early on because Apple was poaching people from Tesla to work on their car project, which no longer exists. And so the relationship is not as fraught as it used to be. But I think the real thing here is that there used to be a big EV rebate in America that was like a tax credit from the government, and the Trump administration killed that. And that has hurt EV sales. Elon Musk did a bunch of stuff, really turned off a lot of the public to him and his whole thing. I don't know how many of those people are coming back, but I think there are people who care a lot who would never ever consider a Tesla. I think there are a bunch of other people who are like, whatever. Like even if they're kind of negative on Elon Musk, I think that they're more reachable. Tesla's not going to reach the people who are unreachable, right, by definition. But I think there are people out there that are maybe more reachable. I think there are a lot of people who are who just kind of don't care. It's a car, and if they like the car, they'll buy it. So I think all of that's going on. But the big thing is Tesla's product line is a disaster, right? Like, because Elon Musk has been focused, so leaving his politics aside just for a second, he is so focused on literally everything else in the world. And Tesla does not have a CEO like SpaceX does. So it's pretty much this guy. And so, like, they were going to do an affordable Tesla. And he was like, no, don't build that. Build a 2-seater robo-taxi because full self-driving is about to happen. He's been saying full self-driving is about to happen for a decade. It isn't happening. Their best-selling car just got an update, the Model Y, but it's a super minor update. Basically, Tesla's 4 core models have not changed almost at all in ages. So they're, to use the car industry term, stale. They're super stale. The Cybertruck is selling has sold like 25,000, but they thought they were going to make 250,000 of them a year. So oops. So they're a company with enormous problems of sale and a new deal for their CEO who gets a lot of stock options if the company does well, which it's not right now. People who talk about Musk having $1 trillion in stock from Tesla, he would have to completely turn around Tesla, a company that needs to be turned around because of him. Seems very unlikely to me. Anyway, you put all this pressure on them. What's an easy win? You find out that almost everybody who might even possibly consider buying an EV in the United States, like 80, 90% of them, whatever the number is, consider CarPlay a vital part of their decision-making process. Well, let me tell you, Tesla is not in a position to turn those people away. So I think ultimately, and look, this could not happen because a high-placed Tesla executive known for changing their mind on an ongoing basis could just...
Who could it be?
Sources are telling me that there's somebody like that in the chain of command at Tesla. Could kill it at any moment. But like, you do this because you don't want to give people yet another reason not to buy your cars when your sales are about to go off a cliff. Because Tesla had pretty good results in sales in the third quarter because the EV rebate was going to end. And so all their cars were going to get $7,500 more expensive. It's going to go real bad really soon. So look, I think CarPlay in cars should happen. I think everybody should put CarPlay in their cars. I think that car makers who are so in love with their own software that they think that it's more important than people's phones and the data that they have on their phones are delusional. We've talked about this a lot. So hooray. But just to put into perspective why they might do this, it's because they're kind of desperate. And at this point, it's, the last thing Tesla of all companies needs is another reason for people to not consider a Tesla right now. So I hope they do it because I think it's the right decision to make. There are a bunch of Tesla. One of my hobbies is reading a couple of Tesla websites that are super obsessed with Tesla because it's like Pravda-esque. I'm not going to name names, but they're like it's amazing to, as a person who does tech journalism, to watch these sites try to bend and contort their coverage to explain why what Tesla is doing and what Elon Musk said is totally amazing and is going to change the world, even though it never happens. And so they've spent years writing about why CarPlay is a bad idea for Tesla because Tesla stuff is just so good. Their software is so good. Why would you need CarPlay? And besides, they added Apple Music support. And they added Apple Podcast support. You got what you wanted. It's fine now. It's great. And so this story comes out, and I'm like, oh, let me see what they say about it. And the answer is this deeply conflicted story where they're like, well, it might be okay. And my favorite part of it is they photoshopped pictures of the Tesla console with like a giant CarPlay in it. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. They're going to put it like in a little floating rectangle, right? Like every other car company. But anyway, so they're losing their minds because they've just spent years explaining why you don't really want CarPlay in your car. And now they're like, oh, but maybe. So it's funny. Anyway, I hope they do it because every car should have CarPlay, period. Every car should have CarPlay.
I get the impression from listening to Marcus Brownlee on his podcast, especially, talk about like Tesla is very very focused on adding and removing access for people that are positive and negative about the company. Like,
Yeah.
and like he was pointing out like when they're doing their robo taxi trials and stuff, um, think crazy things would happen in those cars, and people would be like, "Oh wow, how weird!"
Yeah,
It's like,
right. Because those are the fan YouTubers who
yeah,
are
the
doing those
fan
things.
YouTuber
Yeah,
influencer things.
it's oh, I can't remember his last name. It's Fred. It's the guy who writes Electrek. That's a great
Okay.
website. That is not Pravda. That is in the Gizmodo maybe family and gadget. I forget who does Electrek. 9to5Mac actually family. It's the 9to5Mac family. Of
Okay.
Sites.
Yep. Of products.
Electrek and Fred Lambert is his name. I like his coverage. It's really good. He's the one who does like Elon Musk says full self-driving is right around the corner for 10th straight year. Kind of like he knows he allows truth to come into the conversation, which is very nice. And I'm sure he never gets invited to anything. I think he got blocked by Elon Musk on Twitter, on X.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Because he believes in truth and saying things that are true. Anyway, again, just to say, CarPlay is good. It should be in every car. If it comes to Tesla, that's just like adding Apple Music and podcast to Tesla was good. Adding CarPlay to Tesla is good. Rivian should add CarPlay too. Again, giving people choice and letting them use their data from their smartphones in a convenient way does not take away from your software for your full self-driving interface or your charging maps or whatever. It doesn't have to take away from that. It's fine. Just let it happen.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or scaling a business, Squarespace will give you everything you need to claim your domain, showcase your offerings for a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. Squarespace make it super easy to get paid. From consultants to events and experiences, from consultations, I should say, to events and experiences, you can showcase your offerings of a customizable website that is designed to attract clients and grow your business. Think about built-in appointment scheduling, email marketing tools, or more. Plus, you can keep everything cohesive with on-brand invoices and get paid easily with online payments. But it's not just about these kind of like businessy things or events, stuff like that. You can also add paywalls to content. So you could upload text, video content, or more. You can organize it with their great tools. They have video library systems, for example, to showcase your content on beautiful video pages. But then you can sell access to a video library or any content on the site by adding a paywall to it. This is perfect for online courses, exclusive tutorials, and premium workshops. These are just some examples of some of the things that I love about Squarespace, that they have the tools and the services to provide to anybody that wants to start a website, no matter what it is that they want, whether it's a website for like a brick and mortar business, or it's a completely online business, or it's a blog that you want to make, or a portfolio. Doesn't matter what you want to do, Squarespace have the tools to do it, and they make it incredibly easy to create, design, and maintain that website. But don't just take my word for it. Go and try it out for yourself by going to squarespace.com/upgrade. You can sign up for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, use the offer code UPGRADE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That is squarespace.com/upgrade, and the offer code UPGRADE for 10% off your first purchase, and to show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of this show and all of Relay. Continuing Rumor Roundup, the information is reporting that Apple is making some big changes to their plans for the next iPhone Air model after some disappointing sales. So, the information says that the plan had originally been for an updated model to debut alongside the iPhone 18 Pro this year in September, but that has now changed with the expectation that it'll debut later with the iPhone 18 in the spring of 2027. If you remember, they're going to split the releases.
And this is Mark Gurman's whole newsletter was about this, mostly rehashing things he's reported before, but with some new information. And he actually gave it to the information a little bit in that newsletter. He said, from what I've heard, the second generation Air hadn't actually been earmarked for next year in recent months. This wasn't a delay due to the phone's sales performance. The fact that Apple named the device iPhone Air rather than iPhone 17 Air signaled it didn't want to tie the product to an annual release schedule. And he says Apple developed the Air believing it would make up 6 to 8% of the new iPhone sales, I'm told. Now, we there's some indication that maybe it is not that it's not doing 6 to 8%, but we'll see how that goes. But I think it's really interesting that it's very easy to say, oh, they've delayed this thing because it isn't selling well. But Gurman says they already had delayed it because they want to slide it into that spring slot, and that they didn't. I think that the fact that it's not named 17 was the real clincher of like, we don't know how often we're going to do this. And there was some talk of like, maybe they'll put another camera in it, but I think Gurman was like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because all the compute is up in the bump. And so to move, like, that would be a major redesign of the hardware as opposed to just a new chip, a 2 nanometer chip that's going to be more efficient and therefore extend the battery life on it, which seems to be like a more likely scenario for a second iPhone Air.
I mean, that's not, the information is saying that they will add an ultra-wide camera, vapor chamber cooling, a larger battery, and it will be lighter. So that is a lot of change year over year.
Yeah, for a product that nobody's buying.
Yeah. And it's, it's obviously year over year, it will be year over 18 months, I guess, will be the way that it will work. Right. But from one unit to the next one, that will be quite a lot of change for this device.
So Gurman says no, right? Basically, Gurman says, I'm told the main focus of the second Air will just be to move it to the 2 nanometer chip rather than major structural changes, which should help the battery life, which is the biggest drawback. He says, adding a second rear camera is technically possible, but I find the idea strange. It's already crowded. Redoing that section just to add the least used iPhone camera seems like a lot of work for a phone that a few people are buying. And he says the only way it makes sense if he's reusing some pieces from the folding phone.
I'm not sure that I agree with the least used iPhone camera. It may be the least chosen iPhone camera, but the ultra wide is used a lot in iPhone photography because if you are close to something
for macros,
it automatically switches, and there is no affordance for this on the iPhone Air. So it is actually quite an important camera, and Apple believe so because it's what they put on the iPhone 18, right? Like that they more than anybody else they make the decisions, right? And I'm sure that if Apple felt that customers would most benefit from a telephoto, maybe they would put that on the regular phone. But they put an ultra wide and the regular phone, the regular camera, and so my expectation is it's used more than people would think because it sometimes will automatically switch to it rather than it being something people chose.
It's unattributed, but I sort of assume that somebody at Apple told Gurman that it's the least used of the 3 cameras, and that's why he said it. But he doesn't say according to Apple. He just throws it out there as if it is a fact. So it may be. But I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I look at that and I think that smells like something that I can't say where this came from, but I did actually hear from somebody who said that this was the case. So I'm going to state it as a fact, and I'm going to let it go. I don't know. Maybe it's just him throwing that out there. I think as several people on our Discord are pointing out, Apple hardware designs go like so far in advance. Like there's no way like there. I think what Gurman's saying is probably true, that there's an iPhone Air 2 that was already in development that's going to use the 2 nanometer process. It'll be a refresh. They'll do it in the spring and they'll keep that product going. And if it is a total loser, we may never see another one. But, I think if there are 6 iPhones in the product line, which is where we're headed, having one of them be a perfectly nice 6 or 8% of the market that's using a lot of the same technology that's in the folding phone is probably fine, right? It's probably fine if you've got 6 different models. So we'll see. I mean, because in the end, it's what does Apple think? What does Apple expect this phone to do?
Yep. There was a report. I'll try and find it and put it in the notes. I thought that we ended up having too much on this, but this was like not as well sourced as some of the other stuff that we're talking about. That they stopped production on the Air, which is interesting.
I saw that. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it all comes down to what your expectations are, right? Because they said they increased production of some other models and they stopped production, or they decreased production of that model, cut it back. And that may just be that they thought it would do better than. I mean, if they thought it would do 8 or 9% and it's doing 5%, then that would explain it, because they don't
got too many of them.
Again, they don't want to build more than they sell, right? That's the last thing they want to do. So if it's not selling, but then we had that report about it selling really well when it went on sale in China. I do believe that that's the kind of iPhone that may sell better. I've said this before, may sell better over the course of the year or 18 months than some other models, because it'll get out there. People will see it. People who are more casual buyers may look at it and go like, oh, I like this one. Why wouldn't I get this one? Maybe they won't. I don't know. But like, I think that it's possible that there will be, it'll be a little more of a grower than some of the other models. And maybe it's okay, maybe it's not. I really like it, but the fact is I really like it, and I'm using an iPhone Pro. So maybe that's the facts of it. Also, Gurman, another piece that Gurman had that I thought was really interesting is he says, look, this product also exists because the Fold is coming. And I know we said like Apple doesn't release a product that's just a tech demo. But what he said is, and he really believes this, so he's got people who are telling him this, that for Apple to get the supply chain capable of making the kinds of parts that are going to be required for Apple to make its folding phone, Apple needed a product to prime the pump and to push those those production lines and the suppliers to make things like this. And so I think it's probably complex. I think that Apple would not ship a product it didn't believe in, but I could see Apple saying tactically, could we make a super thin phone as a way we get a super thin phone out of it? That's cool, but also it's a way to get us in position to ship a folding phone. Of course.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to double back to something that we touched on just real quick a moment ago about like Apple plan their phones in advance, years in advance is the timeline, so they wouldn't make a change so soon. I absolutely agree that is the case, that they do plan iPhones years in advance. I absolutely also believe that Apple could make massive significant change to an iPhone line within a short period of time if they thought it was important enough.
I agree, but I think what I would say is what's important enough, because they kept the Mini around for 2 years and they kept the Plus around for 2 years.
Well, that's just because it's like whatever. But like if they genuinely believe that adding a vapor chamber or a larger battery in the second camera, like let's just imagine that they do believe that would sell more. I could imagine that they could be, give us an extra 6 months and we can make that completely different. Like I do believe they could do that.
I could imagine that, but in a time when they're shipping their folding phone, to then also remember they have to put the effort in after one cycle to redesign an entire phone that doesn't sell very well, so it will sell probably, let's be honest, slightly better, but not take the world by storm, I'm skeptical. I think my guess is that Gurman knows that the second iPhone Air is going to be like a very minor update, and that what the information is seeing is what they're going to do down the road. But it's possible the information is better information than Gurman. That it's in the name. I mean,
it's right there. We don't call them Gurmans, do we?
No, they're not Gurmans. I've got some great Gurmans here. Yeah,
it's informations.
It's informations.
iPhone spot cursed. Like, why does this not produce a successful product?
Because the other iPhones are so good, and I think that's the bottom line. Is like that's why I keep saying we're about to enter an era. Gurman talks about it, where there's 6 iPhones. So what he says is Apple plans to unveil 3 high-end models, the 18 Pro, 18 Pro Max, and a foldable in the fall of next year. Then roughly 6 months later, it will roll out the 18, 18e, and potentially a refreshed iPhone Air. I expect the pattern to continue for years to come, with Apple launching between 5 and 6 new models annually. So he's a little unclear about the Airs being annual or not in the long run.
Or the E.
Or
they might not necessarily release one every single year of each of those.
But if we for a moment ponder the idea that there are 6 iPhone models in the line, some of them are going to be niche. Is the ideal that each of them sells 1/6? I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Pro and the mainline and the Pro Max are always going to be the best sellers, and then everything else is going to be an edge case.
Like, what's the percentage of people that are going to spend $2,500 on a folding iPhone? Like, how big is that? Like, we don't know. But what is that?
We could predict that they're going to be like, the sales numbers for the $2,500 folding phone aren't very good, and it's going to be what do you mean by aren't very good? Because it's a $2,500 phone, right? Like, or whatever the price is. It's not going to sell well because it's too expensive, but maybe it will sell well over time, and it might be rapidly, they've got margins on it and be something where they can make a lot of profit on those.
Yeah, it's
it
like
takes time.
you sell 10% of the units and make 25% of the money,
So,
or
would,
something crazy like that.
So I'd say the fourth spot is cursed only in the sense that the other three phones are broad crowd pleasers, and the fourth and fifth and maybe sixth are not going to be that, and that's okay if they fill a niche that Apple thinks is worth filling, if they fill a part of the product line that will appeal to people who might otherwise spend less money or not buy an iPhone or not buy an iPhone as often, like the more holistic reasons. But like, and I really do believe the Air is also testing out product stuff. Again, it's a product. It's not just a test bed, but it is also testing out stuff that's technology that they will probably use in their 20th anniversary iPhone and in the iPhone going forward over the next 5 or 10 years. And that's part of the reason you do that, is you think that there's an upside down the road. I think Apple just clearly thinks that there's an upside in selling 5 or 6 iPhone models instead of 3. Otherwise, they just sell 3.
Yep. We mentioned last week in discussing Apple Silicon that Apple kind of seems to have ultimately abandoned the Mac Pro. And in his Power On newsletter this week, Mark Gurman essentially confirms this. Mark begins the report by saying that Apple is no longer planning for an M4 Ultra, they're not working on that now, so there won't be an Ultra chip in the M4 generation, and that will come in the M5 generation. And that this will actually be for the Mac Studio, not the Mac Pro. Mark says, the quote, Apple has largely written off the Mac Pro. The sentiment internally is that the Mac Studio now represents both the present and future of Apple's professional desktop strategy.
Yes. I can also report that based on what Apple does. This is where we are. The Mac Studio is Apple's professional Mac desktop. That's it. The end of story. I'm not saying the Mac Pro won't get an update. I also wouldn't be surprised if it never gets an update and it goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Like I've been banging this drum because I think it's fun. But
if they're putting out a M5 Ultra and a Mac Studio and the Mac Pro isn't getting an update, they should take the Mac Pro off the price list. That should be the moment where they do. And if they don't, it's because they have some client out there who's like, please, 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 we still need to buy 3 of them a year. Please, please, please. And they're like, all right, we've got some in the warehouse. We'll keep them on the price list. But like, it's over. It's over. And I don't think there is enough of an audience. The argument is like, what, is there an audience for that kind of a product? I don't think there's enough of an audience for that kind of a product to merit the engineering work. Like, could Apple theoretically building a new chip that was different and had different characteristics and was like not like Apple Silicon in a lot of ways that we've come to know it, so that they could make a better Mac Pro? I'm sure they could, and that's so much effort for a product that's not going to sell, and that functionally from a full market perspective, nobody cares about. I know there are people who care about it. One of them is a friend of mine, but as a market,
mine too.
It's gone. It's gone. It's just the Mac Studio is the Apple Silicon take on the Mac Pro. That's the bottom line.
Yep. John, what's it going to take to get you in one of these Mac Studios today? What's it going to take to get you roll one of these Mac Studios off the lot?
M5.
Well, then he's got to wait anywhere between 1 to 4 years if the M3 Ultra is anything to go by, because that did not come when we expected. Last week was the 10th anniversary of the release of the iPad Pro.
Of the iPad Pro. Right.
I think we spoke about it when it was the anniversary because of the announcement, because they announced it in September, shipped it in November.
Right. Or late October, but all the reviews were in early November.
To kind of commemorate this, you've written something about your time where you, when you came to London, decided to not bring a Mac with you.
Yeah, this is one of those things where sometimes I do weird stuff and dumb stuff because this is our job.
It's content.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like this is my job, is to experience things and observe them and write about them and wonder about them, and it's why, we're in this business. Like, you got to try the stuff, you got to use the stuff, even if you decide it's not for you, you gotta try it, at least in the area that you're interested in I'm following a thread that I've had in the past when I've traveled with the iPad Pro, and I thought I would give it a try again, given iPadOS 26. So I took it to London, and I didn't bring my laptop. And you know what? I mean, I am writing a piece on this for Six Colors that will probably be up by the time the show gets out. I was able to pretty much do everything I needed to do in London with the iPad Pro. And if I didn't have your studio and I brought a microphone, I would have been able to do my podcast, and it would have been fine. It would have been fine. But like, so I feel like that's where the iPad Pro is right now, is kind of, you can do everything, but so you don't crash. The metaphor we used a lot was you crash into a wall, right? You hit a brick wall where you're like, forget it. This is not a thing that I can do. Got to get a Mac. Got to do it some other way. I feel like most of those brick walls are gone now, right? Yep. So the brick walls have come down. I know there was a really good piece David Pierce wrote on The Verge. We'll put it in the show notes.
Will do. It's
a brutal headline because it's a decade of unrealized potential, which is not entirely inaccurate. But what I like about David Pierce's piece is that what he says is, okay, and this is how I feel too. Okay, so now you have a platform that is capable of all these things. The changes in iPadOS 26 have solved a lot of these problems. The windowing system is good. A lot of the brick wall stuff is gone. Where is this product going? And I think that's how I feel. It's like Apple has now reached kind of the base after a 10-year ascent that should have taken 5 years, right? Like the iPad Pro should not have taken 10 years to get to the state that it's in now, but it did. What now, though, is my question. Where does this thing go? It's obvious that Apple at one point thought this was a Mac replacement. Now they don't. But it is a professional device that they charge a lot of money for the iPad Pro, right? It's $1,500, $2,000 if you throw everything into it. And it's good. Pierce says maybe the best computer Apple makes. And in some ways, I think you could argue that that's true. It's not as capable, but it's really very good and very flexible, which is Federico Vitici's argument always is, right? Like it is what you want it to be in a way that the Mac is not. But what now? So for me, that was what I came back from London thinking is I can do almost anything. And in fact, there's some things I can do frustratingly on the iPad that I can't do on the Mac, like our whole Final Cut camera multicam recording session, which requires Final Cut Pro for iPad, because that feature's not on the Mac. What? But it's like doing everything with oven mitts. I guess that's what I'm saying with mittens on. It is not that I can't do it. It's that lots of things I feel like are just, it takes too many steps. And some of that is that I don't use my iPad 100% of the time, and I have automations on my Mac that don't exist on my iPad. I will grant you some of it is that. But a lot of it is I can't do that automation because it requires a command line that doesn't exist. And there are command line apps that run like virtual machines, but you're not in the command line of the actual thing. It's different. So that's a thing that's taken away from you. Certain software is taken away from you because it's not in the App Store, so you can't do that. And then some of it, like I think Safari is a great example, and I know that Federico has talked about this, and I think he makes a really good point, which is, remember they made Safari desktop class browsing at some point, which made it better on the iPad. However, you will never use Safari on the iPad and think you're using Safari on the Mac. It's just not. And that's one of those cases where I think to myself, there are places where the iPad Pro really needs to be as functional as the Mac. Mm-hmm. And anytime I hit one where it's not, I say, why? And remember, I'm not an iPad Pro. I'm not talking about the iPad or the iPad Air. I'm saying you're selling this thing for a couple $1,000. Safari should be as capable as it is on the Mac. And there are they're not walls that I hit like the brick walls, but they're soft walls where I'm like, oh, I had this happen in the hotel room. I had to do an edit on our YouTube post. And like you can do it. You have to use the YouTube web interface. It's like you can do it, but like it's tricky on an iPad in Safari to get those things. And on the Mac, it's not a problem. And it's the same hardware. It's theoretically the same app. It's just there are those moments where I think this should be better. And does Apple think that? Is that the goal or not? Or is Apple satisfied? That said, we had a whole thing in 4K HDR that I put together in your studio, exported in your studio on an iPad, and then uploaded in a browser to YouTube from your studio, and it never went anywhere but the iPad. And that's impressive. It didn't used to be like that. But I still was frustrated more than I would like. And every time I push the iPad in a way that I think it feels like it's only sort of slightly intended for, I think, okay, I can do this, but I'm fighting it. And so that's where we are, I feel like, is a lot of the deal breakers are off of the iPad, and there are places where the iPad is really great. Obviously, if you're an artist and you're using the Apple Pencil, it's really great. I can say that as a writer, it's a great device for writing, and I love using the Magic Keyboard and writing things on my iPad Pro. But now that we've gotten to the point where everything is functional, what are Apple's intentions with this platform? Is this it? Is it just going to be, well, it's functional, work on it? Or, I mean, what David Pierce says is Apple actually needs to start making this more Mac-like in a bunch of ways, including, and he mentions like the terminal stuff and being able to run, stuff without finding a weird app that enables a thing in a virtual way that on the Mac you can just do. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this, but I think that's the question to be asked now, is that now that the iPad is pretty capable, that it has kind of graduated from the I wish it could do these things but it can't, where now that it can but it's not, like, does Apple spend a decade tweaking all that stuff, or does Apple look at this and say problem solved, moving on?
I think it's maybe a little bit of the latter, because I think Apple has done the thing that we wanted them to do. They've done it. And now it would be, quote, up to everybody else, right? Like up to developers. But we were just talking about this on Connected. We really got into this with Federico for reasons you could imagine. The problem, I think, lays on the fact that Apple has kind of made a bed for themselves with developers and trying to convince people to do significant work to support everything that iPadOS 26 has to offer even is hard enough.
Well, so
I'm not sure.
This is one of those things where if Apple, and I know Federico talked about this, if Apple can't convince people to make really, really good iPad apps, especially if those companies have web apps that they rely on. And then there's some companies that just build a great web app and they don't even ship an app. They just ship a great web app. What Federico's experience indicates is that Safari's got to get a lot better, right? Like,
yes.
If web apps is what you have to do to be full featured, because Apple has, and it's not just Apple's behavior toward developers, it's also developers just saying, why would we build a native app for iPhone and iPad when we can just build a web app? Then your web displaying technology also needs to be a lot better. I should be able to run any web app that I can run on my Mac on my iPad at the same level with the same functionality. And I think Federico's experience is you can't.
Yeah, no, you can't, because Safari is just not it. Like, it's not the Safari you want it to be, right? Like, it is a version of Safari. Great, you have a version of Safari. It's not full Safari. It just isn't.
It's just not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It's funny. When we were at your bachelor party, I did that's the time that I generated Apple charts, because we live large in Austin, Texas.
We did.
I generated Apple charts entirely on my iPad. That was the one time that I did that, and I got it to work, and it was fine. But what I discovered was there are a bunch of features and numbers that just didn't work on the iPad, even though they had updated a lot of things on the iPad. They've done a lot to really make that thing fully featured. However, I was trying to generate a chart for a piece that I wrote at your studio, and I did end up coming to a point where I'm like, how do I do this on the iPad? And I couldn't find it. And I think it's not there. And I thought that was interesting too, that there are still little edges where even apps like Numbers that are pretty good at supporting the iPad, beyond a certain point, they're like, nah, even though that's the thing that's very easy to do on the Mac. They're like, man, we're not going to even, because they've got a floating interface with like tabs and things, and like you burrow deep enough down and they're like, it doesn't go beyond this. And that's very frustrating too. So I mean, I think you're right, but I do wonder if maybe that is a place going forward that could be how the iPad is more functional, is more attention to the browser. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I think it's also quite likely that now that we've reached this point, Apple's just going to walk away and say it's fine. And it is fine. That's the thing. It is fine for a lot of things. And maybe that's the end story of the iPad Pro, is it's fine in these certain areas, and beyond those certain areas, you should just use a Mac because it's not fine. And that's okay, but the problem is the Mac's not as flexible as the iPad is, and the iPad Pro costs a lot of money. And, you know, I think the question is, what can Apple do to the value of the iPad Pro as a platform to justify its cost? Or is it really just you pay a lot of money because it's nicer than the iPad Air? I feel like where we are right now is you really are just paying a lot of money for it to be nicer than the iPad Air, unless you're doing a lot of 4K HDR Final Cut Pro exports, in which case, yeah, you probably want the M5, although there'll probably be an M4 Air pretty soon that'll do a pretty good job. And I know that, and there's more memory and stuff like that. But like, that's my question. Is the iPad Pro really still on a trajectory to be a professional tool, or is it more just, we call it Pro because it's nice, and if you spend money, you get a nicer screen and more memory and a better processor, but that's the only reason? I don't know. That may be.
This episode is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everybody vulnerable. Delete Me does all of the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. This isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always there, working for you in the background, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information that you don't want on the internet. That's the key part of using Delete Me for me, is that I got to, in filling out the form that you do when you sign up for Delete Me, which is very easy, very intuitive. They have loads of fields that you can fill out, but you just need to put in the stuff that you don't want to exist anymore. So personal information, I want that gone. But professional information, contact information that I want the business world to know about, I want listeners to know about, I don't want that removed completely from the internet. And I was able to tell them, just get rid of this, just get rid of this. And it was fantastic. It's no wonder the New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, with a special offer because you listen to this show, you can get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use the promo code upgrade20 at checkout. The only way to get that 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use the code upgrade20 at checkout. One last time, that is joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and the code upgrade20. Thanks to Delete Me for their support of this show and Relay. It is time for some Ask Upgrade questions. Matthew writes in and says, I remember Mike recommending the app Super Agent to help with auto-setting website cookies. Is that the recommendation that he still has, or is there another app you would recommend? I do recommend Super Agent. So what Super Agent does, you can give it a list of, it lives in your Safari, extension, and it's on the iPhone, it's on all the platforms, and they have it for every browser. You sign up for Super Agent and you're like, I want you to do this for me with cookies, so like accept this kind, reject this kind, that kind of stuff. And then whenever you go to a website, it just does it all for you. And like it just does it all quickly, and I really like it. And most of the time, I don't see cookie pop-ups because I use Super Agent. And it was funny to me when you were here and you were sitting over there in the corner of my studio, and you're like, "Man, there's a lot of cookie pop-ups." And I'm like, "Yep, that's the thing that we still have."
Yeah, I had forgotten how bad it is in the UK until I was there, and it's like, oh. I mean, California has some cookie rules now, so I get cookie pop-ups, but it's nothing like the UK. Literally every site that I visit is like, hey, and they've done the sneaky thing where they're like, they make it really easy to say just accept everything, And
Yes.
then there's like a hidden link down lower that's like accept only the things that are necessary for the site
Which
to
is why I
function.
like Super Agent, right? Because
Yeah.
it's doing whatever it's doing, inspecting the web page to find that, to go in and set them the way that I want. So like you don't need to know where the buttons are; it will just click them for you. Sometimes you see it happening, most of the time you don't, and like you see it happening and just like window, 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 and then it goes away, and it will set that stuff, and it will, yeah. But so I really like it. I say it's obviously a thing in the UK. This is a European thing. This is a thing that happened when we were still in the EU. I think. This Actually, no, it did. And I remember it happening because I was working at the bank then. And I remember there was like a lot of concern about the cookie pop ups because the web team worked like a few desks away and they were talking about cookies a lot. And it took me a long time to realize exactly what it was they were talking about. And they weren't just talking about baked treats. Like this was they had a real concern with cookies.
Yeah.
Lucas writes in and says the bartender update for Tahoe is not very good, and it has to capture your mouse to organize the menu bar, and it interrupts whatever you're doing. I'll just say, Lucas, I don't know what on earth that means, right? Like that sounds bad. Like I don't know what's happening over there. I've not used it, as I mentioned before, and I'll talk about it again in a second. Lucas says it's very disrupting to the point that I've had to uninstall it. But now my menu bar is horrible, with stuff getting hidden behind the notch. I had to disable iStep menus for space. Everything sucks. My my question is, I'm sorry for Lucas. Lucas sounds very sad. My question is there an alternative? What would you recommend for a well curated menu bar? So I'll say for me, maybe Jason will have a better answer. For me, I am just now turning off what I don't want to see in the menu bar settings in system settings, and I'm just trying to work with less and not use any system anymore because they just over time, it's like whack-a-mole, just trying to like deal with my menu bar preferences. Do you have any other recommendations for Lucas, Jason?
Yeah, you could try Hidden Bar, which is on the App Store, and you can try Vanilla, which is a hide menu bar free app. From I think that's the same guy who does Rocket,
Yes,
Matthew
you were
Palmer.
talking about this before because you were
Yeah, this is
upset.
this is the one where if you want to hide the icon, you need to use one of his other apps to do it because he didn't make that a feature. Because why when you can buy another app to do it? But anyway, Vanilla is free, and then there's a pro update, and I think that's the same for Hidden Bar. Maybe you have to. I don't know. I bought Hidden Bar, so or I've got it. Maybe it's free.
That's what you use.
Yeah, the problem is Hidden Bar is old. Hasn't been updated in a while, and I
That's
don't
not great.
know how well it will work. So vanilla might be a better thing to take a shot one, but like take a shot. I agree with you, Mike, that I'm trying without. The problem is that when I'm just on the laptop configuration here, it's bad because there's too much stuff up there, and some of that stuff needs to be up there. What I like about these utilities is you take a portion of your menu bar and you kind of collapse it, and then you can just like click or roll over and see it, and then do a thing, and then go away again and forget about it. But yes, the system lets you choose a lot of that stuff, so you can just choose to hide that stuff, and maybe that would be enough. If not, try vanilla maybe or hidden bar and see if it works for you.
Tim says, recently you discussed how Apple added small weights to the Vision Pro headband to even out the weight. Do you think they could eventually move the battery into the headband instead so they could even the weight and eliminate the need for a cable? Or would the battery be too heavy?
Right now, the battery would be too heavy.
Yes,
I think
right now
in the long run, if you can get the power right, and if there's a way to sort of spread the battery out, maybe because the battery dangling down is kind of a pain. But like, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but getting these things lighter is really the thing you want to do is get everything lighter. And Apple choosing to do the inelegant thing of having a cord that comes off of the Vision Pro and goes into a battery in your pocket suggests to me that Apple tried to put that battery on the device and we're like, no way, like no way. And the battery life of Vision Pro is not super long, so making a smaller battery that is behind your head, I think it's just it's a dream, it's a goal, but in the short term, I mean, there's probably no Vision Pro short term. Like that's the dream in the long run, but it's too much. It's just too much. Too much work.
Yeah, I think the dream for all VR headsets is to put the battery back there because then it's gonna help the counterbalancing, and you don't have to have an outboard battery. Like I think that is always the dream. I would say Steam last week announced a new VR headset called the Steam Frame. It's along with a bunch of other things that they're doing, which looks really cool. The technology in this system is nowhere near as good as the Vision Pro, right? Like the screens aren't as good, etc., etc., etc. But they made a bunch of decisions to get it as light as they can. So the headset and the strap, which includes the battery, the total weight is 440 grams, which is, I mean, I don't remember what the Vision Pro is, but I'm going to look now. But I believe it is much lighter than that. And so that's the battery. And yeah, so the M5 model with the new head strap is 750 to 800 grams, according to a Google AI overview. I don't know where the 50-gram difference is, but let's just say 750 grams. So it's like 440 to 750 is a big difference. And, there are... this is the thing. Like, this is that funny thing of, well, the Vision Pro is going to be nicer hardware, but also the Steam Frame is going to have all the games on it. Where the Vision Pro has none of the games on it. So I think, I think I would honestly get more use out of the Steam one than the Vision Pro, like, because I'd be able to play games on it, which is what I really want from VR. Like, a lot of the time is games, and I just don't see Apple getting them, no matter what they do, really. And Stephen writes in and says, Jason has mentioned his waterproof Bluetooth speaker for podcasts in the shower. What is his current speaker of choice? Does Mike have any recommendations?
My speaker, and I didn't review 20 speakers and find it, but the one that I like is the Tribit X Sound Go, which is cheapish, waterproof, battery lasts about a month. Because I just turn it on and off when I'm in the shower. I only use it for podcasts, so I don't care about the audio quality. It makes the rest is history sound very clear in the shower. USB-C
which is all you
recharge.
Could ever want,
I mean, that's what I'm looking for, is to go back in time while I shampoo my hair. USB-C recharge fits in my bag for travel, so I actually take it with me. I used it when I was in London because it's waterproof. I can hang it off of the handle. I take it with me wherever I go if there's room in my bag, because it's light and small and sounds great, and it allows me to bring my little podcast noises with me when I'm in other places.
Very nice. I just bring my iPhone in the shower, YOLO. If I'm going to listen to podcasts in the shower,
it's not loud enough for me. I'm not happy enough with that. I want a little more booming podcast voice in the shower.
Get it up high.
For
you got to get it to head, to as close as you can to head.
Well, the showers that I'm using when I travel tend not to let me do that. At my mom's house, there's no place to get it up high, so I have to use it all down low. And I've done that, and I've gotten water in the speaker grill, and I've gotten it to yell at me that I can't charge it because it's still moist in there, and it dries out eventually. But bringing a $35 shower speaker, and it fits. The other thing I should say about the Tribit is, it's long. Like there are speakers that are more like a soda can
I was
or whatever.
expecting like a little circle guide. This is this looks like this is like a little Sonos going on in there.
Yeah, well, it's super small, but it's long, and that means it goes on a shelf really well, and then it's got a little rope handle thing, so it's really easy to hang it. I mean, literally in London at the hotel, there are the two knobs on either side of the shower for temperature and for water, and I just hung it on one of those, and that's it. And then it just kind of just dangles there and plays the audio, and then when I'm done, I take it out. So yeah, it fits on the shelf. That is the little crank window in my shower, and so it fits there perfectly. And I put the little rope around the crank handle so that if it falls off, which it almost never does, but if it does fall off, it doesn't fall to the ground. It just dangles until I save it. So I like it. I have not done a massive, check, but I think it's a really nice, for the money, shower companion. And I should probably just buy one and leave it at my mom's house for when I visit her.
If you would like to send in your feedback, follow-up, or questions for Ask Upgrade, go to upgradefeedback.com. Thank you to everybody that sends stuff in every week. Thank you to our members who support us for Upgrade Plus. This week, we're going to talk about the iPhone Pocket. You can go to getupgradeplus.com to sign up, and you can get 20% off your first year for new subscribers with the code 2025holidays. If you would like to watch this show instead of just listening to it, you can find us on YouTube. We are the Upgrade Podcast, obviously. You just search for that, and you'll find us. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this week. That is Delete Me, Squarespace, and Gusto. But most of all, thank you for listening. Till next time, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Goodbye, Mike Curley.